In this video, I wanted to talk about how I managed to retire at the age of 46. And in fact, what actually happened is that I was already semi-retired by even before the age of 46. Excuse me. And I would say my semi-retirement actually started when I was about 44 years old, because I left the police in November 2018. This is the Hampshire Constabulary. For those who haven't watched my videos, I was working for the police in the UK, and I left in November 2018, and from there my family and I came back to Zimbabwe as what is called returning residents. This is where you can bring all your goods, a car for each adult in the family. So we brought back 2 cars and all our goods, all our furniture, all our household appliances, everything, all our clothes and shoes and stuff. We were allowed to bring that back to into Zimbabwe, duty free without paying a single cent. So from there, I only went back. How many times did I go back to the UK? I think it was once or twice. So that was it's because I left the police in November 2018, like I said, but I actually left the UK with all our goods. We sent our goods. We sent our goods to Zimbabwe by shipping containers. They were in shipping to one massive shipping container, and but we actually left the UK in about February 2019, and we passed through Zambia. That's when I had that incident that I spoke about, where I had an argument with my dad, and from there basically fell out with my parents, because my mom also supported my dad. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to give you a chronology of how things happened. I think we went back to the UK twice, I think, if I remember correctly, because I think we went back once in 2019, and then the next time, yes, once in 2019, I think, and then I think the next time was in 2020, when we had the whole scamdemic, which was basically a psychological operation run by the Department of Defense in America. But ultimately, it was the Jesuits and the Catholic Church who were behind that. They even minted some coins showing on the coins they were showing there were images of people taking the poke. So yeah, the Catholic Church was behind the scamdemic, and just like how they are behind most of the major events in the world, whether it be 9/11 or false flag events, like even the school shootings. Some of them, and I'm not saying that all the school shootings in America are fake, but a lot of them are. But it's the agenda behind school shootings is to take away guns from Americans so that they can't defend themselves. That's what happened in Germany, in Russia, in Cambodia. In China, all these dictators from those countries that I mentioned, Mao Zedong, Stalin, Hitler, and Pol Pot, all these mass murderers. What they did first was that they took away the ability of citizens to defend themselves first before they carried out genocide. So yeah. So, my family and I came back to Zimbabwe permanently in October 2020, and we've been here since then. I've not left Zimbabwe since then, and I've not been working since October 2020 when we came back. I mean, I've had a few things that I've done to get money. For instance, one of the things that really helped us when we came back to Zimbabwe is that we sold. I'm sure you can see as I'm walking around. If for those who pay attention, you can see that there are lots of pine trees here on this massive plot that we're on. And in fact, initially this plot was 11.1 hectares, which is a massive piece of land. But I actually have a friend who lives not very far from here, whose name is Ken. He actually owns 99 hectares, which is really massive. But we had 11.1 hectares, and there were lots of pine trees here. No, I'm talking about big pine trees when we first bought the property. And in fact, there was a time, I think it's around 6 or 7 years ago, when we were actually in the UK. We had a gardener stroke caretaker who was looking after our property for us whilst we were away for security reasons and also for the upkeep of the property. He sent me and my wife a message on WhatsApp saying that there were some locals who had come onto our property and cut pine, 3 pine trees, because they wanted to sell them, which is obviously theft, obviously, and we reported that to the police, even though they threatened my worker, my former employee, and told him that he shouldn't go to the police. I told him I told him to go to the police, but nothing ever came out from the investigation of the police, even though they had named suspects. But yeah, so that's one of the ways the reason why I'm talking about pine trees is that's one of the ways we actually made money. We sold some of the timber here. If you look behind me, some of those trees that you can see are actually pine trees. Even behind me right there, those are pine trees. Okay, so but these are really, really small, but they can still be used for to make, like small wooden panels for ceilings and for doors. They can be used for making doors. There's what they call crating here. This is what when they have small trees like this, they can actually use small trees to make crating, which is what they use to make those ceilings the ceilings that have pine panels. Yeah, that's what they make from crating. They can also make doors as well from them and other types of furniture. So we made quite a lot of money by selling pine trees, because we had massive trees here, and it was a very good move for us to do that. But one of the reasons why the idea came into our heads that we should sell pine trees is because of the issue which I've already mentioned, that we had some locals that were now starting to. It only happened once, but we were trying to prevent it from happening again. We sold some of our trees because I was concerned that they might start cutting trees and selling them whilst we were not here. So we made quite a lot of money from that, because we had some of the trees that we had here, you couldn't put your arms around them. They were so massive. And from what I remember, I think we made over $2,000 because in Zimbabwe here currently we're in 2025, and Zimbabwe is still using US dollars, along with some other currencies, including the ZiG, which is the official Zimbabwean currency. But I think in other parts of the country, especially when you go towards the south of Zimbabwe, when you go to places like Bulawayo and Pine Tree, these are cities within Zimbabwe that I'm talking about, or towns in Zimbabwe, which are close to Botswana and the South African border. They use the pula, which is the currency from Botswana, and then the South African rand. Some of those are used here as well, but the currency that's mostly used is the US dollar. The government here has tried to do a process that is referred to as de-dollarization. In other words, to remove the US dollar. And that has actually been done, but they had to bring it back because the currencies that were introduced here, for example, there was a time when we had what was called the bond notes, which from my understanding is, it was said that the bond notes and the coins were only being introduced to alleviate the issue of change, because we don't have US coins here. We only have the paper money. We don't have any coins, so there's an issue with change. So what actually happens sometimes when we go shopping is that when, let's say I do shopping, or I buy groceries, and the bill is, let's say, $59.15. I'll give the person behind the till $60, and then they'll say to me, "So what do you want for your change?" Because there are no coins there. So say, "Okay, give me some sweets, or give me some matches." It's things that don't cost a lot of money. So instead of getting change in coins, you get change as excuse me, as in the form of sweets or matches or chewing gum or something. So So let me just go back on track in terms of talking about how I managed to retire at the age of 46. Bearing in mind that from the age of 44, I wasn't properly employed anyway. I was only working a few hours part time, and that was only when I was in the UK, and we were spending most of our time here from 2020, no, from 2019 onwards, we were spending most of our time here, even when we were traveling. And like I said, October 2020 is when we came back here permanently. So, so when we came back here, so let me just backtrack a bit especially for those who haven't watched my personal testimony. And I think there's one more video that I made where I spoke about how God gave me this gift of being sensible with money. I don't waste money. There are times when I've wasted money. It doesn't mean that I've been perfect with money, but predominantly I have been very sensible with money. Even from the time I was a child, when I was in primary school, I used to save money to the extent that sometimes my parents, but especially my mom, I don't remember my dad as much asking me for money, but my mom, even as a child, used to come to me and ask me for money because I would tell her I've got $5, I've managed to save $10. So I've always been a person who has, I don't know why, but I like saving money, especially when I've got extra money. I used to love saving money, and that really helped me later on when I became an adult, to the extent that I actually paid for my own college fees when I was studying art and design in college at the Harare Polytechnic. And then later on, I managed to purchase my own plane ticket to the UK. So I think it's also important for me to say all this so that you get an understanding of how I ended up in the UK and all this stuff. I bought my own plane ticket, as I said, and with a tiny bit of help that was given by my mom, and she did that reluctantly. She didn't want to help me because my parents wanted me to stay behind with my siblings, since I'm the firstborn. But and this came up later on when I fell out with my parents, especially with my dad, because he was very abusive to me even when I was growing up, but also abusive to me and my wife. But it was said that we actually had a meeting, which I didn't address in my videos, but I haven't spoken about my videos. But what actually happened is that most of my relatives actually sided with my dad. Even though when he wasn't present, they were saying, when I told them what happened, that he was being abusive to me and my wife, they actually said that my dad was wrong. But when it came to now sitting down and having a meeting, some of my relatives, there were two of them especially who were there. There were three relatives who were present, not including my dad, but there were three relatives who were present. The two of them basically shielded my dad and were saying things like, well, since you are the firstborn, you're supposed to help your parents and all this stuff. But what I'm trying to say, the reason why I'm mentioning all this is that even as the firstborn, I have my own goals that I want. I've always had my own goals that I wanted to achieve, even as the firstborn. I don't believe that I should give up my own goals or give up my rights or give up my freedoms because I'm the firstborn. And I mean, in terms of being abused and stuff, yeah, not just me but my wife, no one has right to abuse me, and no one has right to abuse anyone or to take away their God-given rights. Remember that I did a video on the issue of rights and where the human rights, where they come from. Human rights our rights are given to us by God, okay? And no one has got the power or authority to take them away from us. Like what happened during this pandemic when we were told to stay indoors, that was actually a crime against humanity. No one has got the authority to tell anyone to stay in their house, and now we're seeing all these climate lockdowns that are coming in. Like for instance, in Canada, in the different provinces, they're putting these rules. I won't even call them laws. These rules that you can't walk in the woods because you might start a fire. How do you start a fire if you're just walking in the woods? That's ridiculous. So yeah. So I was just addressing the issue of how I've been very sensible with money. So what happened basically is when my wife and I and our family came back here to Zimbabwe permanently in October 2020, is that we managed to live on whatever money we had made in the UK, and also there was a point when we were selling some of our timber. We made, like I think I mentioned this already, we made over 2,000, perhaps over 3,000 US dollars. And that kept us going, you know, enabling us to do shopping and stuff like that. And then we had also bought a house in the UK in a place called Bacup, near Manchester. Unfortunately, we didn't have that house for very long. I think we only had it for about 2 years. There was a point when we came back here permanently. We had some estate agents that were helping us to look after the house. They were helping us to rent out the house. We were not really getting any of that rent in our pockets because we had a mortgage, a very small mortgage on that house. When we bought that house, it was less. We bought that house for less than 70. How much did we buy that house for? I think it was even less than £60,000. It must have been around 58,000 if I can't remember, but it was definitely less than £70,000 because when we sold it, we sold it for just over £70,000, and we actually made a bit of profit. So whilst we were here, because of the scamdemic, in fact, the scamdemic was still going on because the scamdemic started in March 2020 and went on till there's no exact date with regards to when it ended exactly, because it ended at different times in different countries. For instance, here we have the vice president, who is also the minister of health, who actually never came out and said that Zimbabweans can stop wearing masks. Zimbabweans actually stopped wearing masks by themselves because they were sick and tired of it. So there was actually no cutoff point as to say, I can't give a month as to say here in Zimbabwe or around the world when it stopped, but it stopped at different times in different countries. But because of what had happened, and there were actually 2 occasions when we had planned, our flights to the UK were actually cancelled. Because when we came to Zimbabwe in 2019, I think it was at the end of 2019, we were supposed to fly back in, I can't remember what month it was, perhaps April or something, April 2020. Our flights were cancelled because of the scamdemic. And I think at the time we were flying with Emirates. Our flights were cancelled. And I mean, even getting our refund was very, very difficult because we had actually paid return tickets. And then my wife, I think, she went online. My wife is very good at looking. She's very good at looking for things online. She found some plane tickets that she actually paid for, and the flights were supposed to be with South African Airways. And even I was surprised. I was like, South African Airways are still flying when everyone else is grounded, basically. And then, but after a few days or a few weeks, she got a message basically saying that our flights had been cancelled. And then I think getting the money from South African Airways wasn't that difficult. I can't remember exactly what happened, but she was in the forefront of dealing with all that. So I said to her, stop buying any more tickets, because this is going to cause a lot of issues now with getting our money back and all this stuff. We already owed money by Emirates, who took a long time to give us back our money. But eventually we came up with the idea of buying our plane tickets back to the UK on the day that we were supposed to fly out. At this point, we hadn't sold our house in the UK. This was early 2020, when this pandemic had just started. So eventually bought our plane tickets on the day with Ethiopian Airways on the very day that we were flying. It was a Wednesday. I remember that we actually left our house on a Monday, I think, and just to make sure that nothing would happen if anything happened on the way to Harare, which is about a 3.5 hour drive, that we would have time to sort ourselves out. Like, for instance, if the car broke down, we would manage to get some help. So we left Nyanga, which is where I am. We left Nyanga on a Monday, arrived in Harare on the same day, and eventually on the Wednesday of the same week, we managed to buy our plane tickets and we flew to the UK, and just to make sure that because we actually left the house without anyone there, and we actually found that there was an electrical fault when we got there, and someone said that we were fortunate that our house wasn't burnt down, because there was actually no one in the house. So I stayed in the UK for a short while. My wife was working. She was the main breadwinner at the time now, and I was only working part-time and not earning a lot of money. But yeah, we only stayed for a few months and then came back here. And then whilst we were here, that's when we were renting our house out with the help of an estate agent. And having, assessing the situation with this pandemic, which was still ongoing at the time when we obviously came back. That was in October 2020, which I've already mentioned. Uh, it was very difficult for us to travel, so we decided to basically sell our house, and we gave the estate agent the the you know the go ahead to sell our house, which we managed to do. It wasn't a very easy process, but and we didn't get the money that we wanted. But I think we made about £12,000 profit, and some of that we actually owed some money to a gas company that had installed a gas boiler, because the boiler that was in the house was an old style one that wasn't working, so we owed some money. But from that 12,000 we managed to get some money. And what we did actually is that we did a lot of bulk shopping. Even right now in 2020 we still have some food in the house that we bought in 2020 when we came back in 2020, end of 2020 into 2021. We did a lot of bulk shopping. We've even got soap and some stuff that we bought. But I really need to mention something that's really important in terms of, for those who are, trying to quit the rat race, which is something that I never really enjoyed. I never enjoyed working for someone else. I even remember both my wife and I, said to one of my cousins, because when we used to travel back and forth between the UK and Zimbabwe, one of the place where we used to stay, actually, I used to stay with my cousin. That was before we got divorced. But I remember us actually saying to him that we didn't want to be in the rat race anymore. I wasn't happy having to wake up early so that I could start work at 7 o'clock in the morning. You know how, for those in the UK, you know how difficult it is sometimes in winter, especially, or in autumn, when you have that really miserable weather. Having to wake up and go to work, and because if you start work at 7 o'clock, you don't wake up at 7 o'clock, do you? You have to wake up at about 5:30 or so you can make it to work on time. So I really didn't enjoy that, and all the working night shifts when basically your body is telling you no, you're supposed to be asleep, and you're walking around. When I was in the police, we used to walk in the snow when we used to walk the towns on weekends, because there was a lot of activity in the town, police in the town, making sure there were no fights or people drinking on the streets and stuff like that. And yeah, that was very hard. But so I wanted to mention the issue of housing or accommodation. That one of the major things for those who basically want to quit the rat race is you have to sort out your accommodation. You have to make sure you've got a place of your own, so that, because one of the major outgoings, when you get paid, one of the things, the most expensive things is accommodation. Regardless of where you are in the world, accommodation is expensive, and even here in Zimbabwe it's the same thing. So so we managed to purchase this plot with a house that was already built on it. That was in February 2013, if I remember correctly, around there. And it just so happens that the economy was on our side, because we were working in the UK earning pounds, and this house was being sold in US dollars. Zimbabwe was already using US dollars in 2013. Or regardless whether they were using US dollars or not, but the owner, the seller of this property wanted US dollars. So managed to borrow some money when I was in the UK, when this idea of buying a house here in Zimbabwe came up, and it was very easy for me to do that, because the bank I was with had given me a very good rating, because I had saved a lot of money. I think I had more than £3,000 in my current account, and it was a bit of a struggle for my wife to get a loan, but eventually she did, and that kind of taught her a lesson as well, that she also needed to save money as well, instead of just spending it. So we both managed to get a loan, and like remember I said that we were in the UK earning pounds, and we were supposed to be purchasing the property in US dollars. So at that time, the exchange rate was about one pound was equals to 1.6 US dollars. So the house, my wife said actually she went back and when looking at the the advertisement of this house, of this property, she said she went back and noticed that the house had actually started off at about I think she said it started off at about 120,000. That's how much this place was being sold for. But as time went on, the seller brought the price down, and by the time we found the property, by the time we saw the property, it was being sold for. We basically negotiated and eventually brought it down to 100,000, which 100,000 in US dollars, from US dollars to pounds, was about 60,000. It was just over 60,000, I think we paid, because in the end, the estate agent said that the seller wasn't happy with us because we had said we can afford whatever price was the property was at the time. But then we started bringing the price down. She said the seller wasn't happy and asked us to pay for his lawyer's fees. So we ended up paying for the lawyer's fees as well, which actually basically put us under a lot of financial strain because we had to use our overdrafts and stuff like that. But we managed to purchase the property and eventually started paying off the money that we owed. And because of the way we purchased this property, this is just an interesting note. We actually never came to see the property before we bought it. We actually just saw it online. And I actually wasn't happy with the property when my wife showed me. But in comparison with all the other properties that she showed me, this was the best property, even though it needed a lot of work. So in September of 2013, we came to Zimbabwe to view the property for the first time, to actually live in the house after we bought it without even seeing it. Yeah, so I'm still talking about the major thing that you need to get out of the way if you want to get out of the rat race. You are sick and tired of working, you don't want to work for anyone else anymore. Get your accommodation issues out of the way. Get your housing issues out of the way. As you can see, the powers that shouldn't be ultimately is the Catholic Church and the Jesuits, and all their think tanks, their secret societies, all these governmental agencies and the different politicians around the world. They are really tightening the screws. So we're coming. We're getting very close to what's mentioned, to the prophecies mentioned in Revelation 13, where it talks about, the no buying and no selling. That's going to be done mainly through CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, which I think I've explained in some of my other videos. There is digital currencies basically that will have controls on them, and they'll make it very difficult for those, if you don't obey the coming climate laws, which will require everyone around the world to rest on Sundays, with the excuse that will help to bring emissions down and stop climate change. If you don't agree with a lot of these things that are coming, you will not be able to buy and sell. So you need to get yourself in a position where you have a roof over your head, and and other things that I'm going to talk about, which will help you to be self-sustaining to a certain extent, so that you don't suffer as much. So sort out your accommodation, your housing. If you've got a mortgage right now, do as much as you can to pay that off. And I'm going to talk about some principles that you can follow to get yourself out of the rat race. And one of the things that you need to get out of is this thing of owing others money, or being in debt. You need to get out of debt, basically. So sort out your housing. So that's what happened with us. We bought this place. We owed we felt that we owed a lot of money, but I mean, compared to some other people around the world, there are some people who are paying off mortgages that are over £1 million or $1 million. We didn't borrow that much money, but yeah, we still felt it. We felt, because my wife and I don't like being in debt, so we did. My wife wanted to pay off our loans in 10 years, and I refused. I said we need to pay it off quicker, and she actually really saw that I had a very good vision of the future, because what then happened is we actually finished off paying off our loans at the end of 2018, and then soon afterwards we had this pandemic. So imagine if we if I had been in the police and I'd been told that I need to get the poke, which I would never have done, that would have meant that I couldn't work, you know. So same with her. She my wife is a nurse. She was working for the National Health Service in the UK, NHS, and if she was working full time and needed, you know, had no option but to work, she might have been put in a position where she was forced to take the poke, which actually did happen to a lot of people in the UK and in the US and in Australia, around the world. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I need to mention before I mention some of the principles that you can follow to not only to get out of debt but to basically quit the rat race. I would say one of the first things you need to have is vision. You know, and it's not here. I've not written it down, but this is something that's very important. What are your goals in life? You know, um, are you someone who's happy to keep working until you're 65 years old? By the way, don't forget that they keep pushing up the age, the retirement age. At the moment, I think it's 65 for both sexes, male and female. But that might go up because even, you know, the private pensions, the earliest you can you can take out your private pension is at the age of 55. That's going to rise to 57 in 2028. I was hoping to get some of my private pension at the age of 55, which is not very far in the future. But now they're putting up the age, so that might even happen with state. It might even happen with state pensions as well. So don't rely too much on that. You know, try and sort out your finances now. So I was just talking about goals. What are your goals in life? Do you want to retire at the age of 65 or 70 when most of us start getting sick and we are not very mobile and we need help or assistance from relatives or from nurses who need to come and visit us every day? For me, I never agreed with that kind of outlook on life, that, oh, I'm going to work hard until I'm 65 or 70 and then I'm going to enjoy my retirement. I heard this being said many times, you know. Maybe some of you who are watching this, watching me for the first time, you don't know this, but I was in the British Army. I was a medic in the, you know, Royal Medical Corps in the British Army, and I heard a lot of soldiers, both male and female, saying the reason why, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why they joined the army is because the army pension is very good. So straight away they were thinking of, oh, retiring at 65, or in the army, if you stay for the full 22 years, I think it is, you can get your pension earlier. But otherwise, if you leave early, you retire in your 60s. So it's like basically, and it's the same in the police, by the way. Before I forget, it's the same. I heard the same sentiments being expressed when I was in the police, that the pension in the police is very good, which is true. But why wait until you're 65 or 70, or perhaps even older, if they change the retirement age, before you start enjoying yourself? I never agreed with that, and even up to now, I don't. That's why I'm in this position now, you know. So what happens in life is that you are most likely going to achieve the goals that you have in mind. So if you are a person who doesn't mind retiring at the age of 65 or 70, that's most likely what you're going to achieve, because even God will help you, will allow you to continue working until you're 65 or 70 or 70. But if you are still young and you want to work hard and pay off all your debts and be in a very good position financially, where you don't owe anyone any money and you're actually getting some kind of passive income, or you've got passive income where you don't have to necessarily work, then you are also most likely going to achieve that. So with me and my wife, we were tired of working. And something else I wanted to say is that sometimes I wonder, especially for Africans who leave Africa and go to, let's say, to Europe or to America or to Australia, any country that's supposed to be, in quotes, better than whatever African country you've left. You go there and you're working for more than 30 years and you still haven't achieved your goals. What exactly is that person doing? So because I'm saying that because both my wife was in the UK for 21 years and I was there for roughly about 20 years. And some of those later years we were traveling back and forth, coming to Zimbabwe to fix our house up. But yeah, we just say 20 years I was in the UK. And in that 20 years, I managed to basically achieve everything that I plan to achieve. So you don't need to be working for 40 plus years to achieve your goals. You just need to be sensible with your money. And these are some of the things I'm going to read out here. So one of the things as well. Remember, I said that we sold our house. I know I'm kind of like jumping here and there because I'm not reading off notes. I'm not reading any notes yet. I'll read some things in a few minutes. But the reason why I might be looking like I'm just all over the place is because this is not. I'm not reading off a script. Okay. So the house that we sold in the UK, the money that we got from there. Sometimes I think back and I think, what actually happened to that money? Because I also got some money from the police as well when I left the police, which I'm not going to mention amounts, but in terms of, specifically in terms of how much I got from the police, but in terms of our house, we got about £12,000, but we owed some money to a gas company, as I already mentioned. So some of that money, when I think back, sometimes I think, what happened to that money? Because we could have perhaps put that money, added that money to some other money that we had, and we could have bought a small house that we could have rented. But no, that money helped us to apply for a permit to sell some of our land, and also helped us to do a lot of bulk shopping. And like I said, we're still even using some of the things that we bought with our bulk shopping. Some of the food is still in our house, and so basically. This plot was 11.1 hectares when we bought it, and we actually initially planned to sell 5 hectares, but we would have been left with 6.1 hectares, which would have still been too big because we had an issue with poaching, and like I said, some of the locals were now cutting trees on our property and trespassing and stuff like that. And so eventually we sold 7 hectares, and the money for the subdivision process came from the house that we sold in the UK, and then the money that we made from selling the 7 hectares enabled us to purchase 2 separate houses in different locations. One is in a place called Rua, which is just slightly out of Harare, but is classed as being part of Harare. And another one in Mutare. We bought a house in Mutare. So those 2 houses we're getting rent from. For those who might be wondering how are we managing to survive, that's where most of our money is coming from. I'm also helping my wife to look after some properties in Bulawayo, which are owned by my mother-in-law and my other in-laws. So that's just something that keeps us busy as well, because even we do go on trips where we go and do repairs and stuff like that, do painting and stuff like that. So that's what's keeping us going. But I'm hoping that by God's grace we can purchase maybe 1 or 2 more properties so we can get a bit more rent, because at the moment the rent is not exactly. It's not a lot of money, but it's enough to keep us going, to buy fuel for our cars, to buy food, and to pay for our Starlink and all the other things that we need to live. So we don't have a mortgage. We're not paying a mortgage. We're not paying rent. So that's why I was saying earlier, get that out of the way. If you're owing money on a mortgage, just stop wasting money on useless things and concentrate on paying off your debts, especially your mortgage if you have one. If you're renting, start saving up to purchase a house. But because of where we're going in terms of what's coming upon the earth, as prophesied in the book of Revelation, with no buying or no selling, try and purchase something that you can pay off within a very short space of time, so that you don't owe any money. Don't be put in a position where you are forced to do certain things, because if you don't do those things, you're going to lose your house. So I just wanted to go through some principles that can also help you, for those who've got the same vision as I have, or my wife and I have, of basically quitting the rat race early in life, so that you can actually also enjoy your life and rest as well, without having to wait for retirement age. There's no law that forces you to work until you're 65 or 70. That's optional. That's for those who are the conformers who like to follow the herd. But for those who got the same vision as I do, these are some of the things that you can do to help yourself to retire early. So pray first and ask God to find out what He wants you to do and which country He wants you to live in. Because if you're in the UK or in America or in Australia or wherever you are watching this video, it does not necessarily mean that you have to remain where you are. Let's say you want to retire early. It doesn't mean that you have to retire where you are. Maybe God wants you to go somewhere else, because God always has mission. He wants you to be a missionary wherever you are. Yes, you're supposed to have an abundant life that Jesus spoke about. Not to be in debt and enjoy life and all this stuff. But wherever you are, you're supposed to be a missionary as well. And ask God where He wants you to be, and which country, what He wants you to do, and which country He wants you to live in. To have goals you can work towards. There's no point of just going through life not having a goal. This is what leads to a lot of people thinking that, I'm going to retire 65 or 70. How do you know that you're going to be there? You're going to even live to that age? My wife actually told me of. My wife went to the US once, and she met this lady who said that she was given a slip. She was expecting a pension, but when she got a slip, which was supposed to show how much she was supposed to get in as a pension, this slip showed 0,000. She was not going to get anything, basically. So things can change. Don't think that. Don't live life having this goal of retiring at 65 or 70. There might actually not be anything when you retire, when you get your retirement age. There are many old people that are still working who have had to go back to work because they've realized that their pension is not enough. In the police, sometimes we used to go to what we call G28. G28 basically was a form that we used to fill in when we went to a sudden death. A G28 was a sudden death, basically. We used to go to these sudden deaths where the older folks would have died in their homes because they'd kept their heating off because they couldn't afford to have it on. So don't make sure you don't end up in that kind of situation. So have goals you can work towards. Prayer and your own effort go hand in hand. Sometimes there's a lot of emphasis on prayer, but there's no mention of what part we are supposed to play in whatever we're praying about. You have a part to play as well. Ask God. God is overall in control, but He wants you to take part as well in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Okay. Number 3, save money so you can have a deposit when buying a plot of land or house. It is better to buy a house that's already built than to build one. That's my advice. That's in my personal experience. Initially, I wanted to buy a piece of land so I could build a house, but my wife actually advised me against it. And she said, building a house comes with a lot of headaches because your materials can be stolen, and sometimes the house is not built according to the specifications that are on the plans. That's actually happened many times to other people, including my parents. But number 4, don't waste money on useless things like nightclubs, porn, TV, or TV subscriptions. Okay, I mean, even a TV license. We stopped paying a TV license because of course, I stopped paying. I stopped watching TV when my eyes were open to the fact that TV is propaganda. It's government propaganda. But that also helped us to stop paying a TV license, because in the UK there's a lot of emphasis on paying for a TV license. Even if you don't watch those channels that you're supposed to pay a TV license for, they'll say as long as you have a TV. I think they say if you have a TV with an aerial, you're supposed to pay a TV license. So that was a way of us saving money. And one of the other things is, which might seem very small, some of you might even laugh and think, well, but that's not a lot of money. One of the other ways I saved money as well is that I started doing, I started cutting my own hair. I've been cutting my own hair now for over 10 years, probably coming up to 15 years, somewhere there. Even up to now, I cut my own hair. I don't see the need of going to a barber where I'm going to be paying maybe 10. Here in Zimbabwe, we use dollars, but in the UK, I think it was £10, between 5 and 10 pounds, somewhere there. Every 2 weeks I used to go and get my hair done, but now I do my own hair with my own hair clippers, so I'm saving money straight away because it all adds up. Like, you know, like the Tesco motto that says every little helps. Yeah, every little helps as well when you're saving, you know. So not paying TV and not even paying TV subscriptions for those you know, those football matches or rugby matches or whatever, or Netflix. You know, you save money by not paying for those things. The other things you shouldn't waste money on, which I deem to be useless: cigarettes, girlfriends. You know, there are some married men who have girlfriends, and that's an outlet for money to be wasted as well. Alcohol and other drugs. Don't waste money on those things. Things like porn, you shouldn't be watching porn anyway. For those. Whether you're Christian or not, I was about to say for those who are Christian, but you shouldn't be watching porn. It's very addictive and it's very bad for your health. So, number 5, take care of your own needs before the needs of others, and don't run around trying to make everyone happy. I've done some videos, including one where I spoke about why I stopped paying black tax. You can go and watch that. I'm not going to start explaining all that again, but yeah, you can go and watch that. Basically, I stopped doing all that. This thing of sending money to my parents and my relatives and stuff, and running not just money, but buying material things for them, buying them clothes and sending them phones, whether they were used phones or new phones or doing this and that. I stopped doing all that because my eyes were opened. I came to the realization that no one appreciates that stuff, and you create a dependency syndrome. When relatives or even especially parents think that every month they're going to be getting money from you. What I've come to realize is that my duty as a husband and as a dad is to look after my wife and my children. That's my duty. Especially when I'm not actually in a relationship with some of these relatives that I've mentioned. So concentrate on your own needs first, especially now that I've said that you can see and you can hear and you can tell that the screws are being tightened, that things are going to get more and more difficult. There's a lady on YouTube who actually does videos. She's a homesteader, but she does a lot of videos showing how life difficult is for Americans. A lot of Americans are crying, literal tears, including Canadians as well, but and others around the world. But Americans are finding it very hard, even after voting for Trump, thinking that he was going to change things, but things are still, it's just going downhill. Because some of them thought that Trump was going to be their savior, but the only savior is Jesus Christ. Okay, so they can't sell their houses. It's very difficult to sell their houses. Some of them, a lot of Americans are leaving America permanently to go and stay elsewhere. Some are going to Europe. Some are going to South America. Some, I think, are even coming to Africa. And there are a lot of Black Americans who are going to South Africa as well, because things are very difficult in America. But number 6, Proverbs. I'll start with Proverbs 22 verse 7. It says, "The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." This is me speaking now. If you have to borrow money, borrow a small amount of money that you can pay off in less than 10 years. It's been said that if you borrow money that takes you over 10 years to pay, then you're being greedy. You know, it should not. My wife and I, it took us about 5 years to pay off our debts. Remember that we owed about 100,000 US dollars, which was about just over 60,000 pounds at the time, because the rate was a pound to 1.6 US dollars. It took us just roughly about 5 years to pay that off. 7, Proverbs 11:15 says, "He that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it, and he that hateth suretyship is sure." So this is, in case maybe the language is confusing, but this is talking about how don't be a guarantor for someone else, basically. You know, a lot of the things that I talk about here on this channel are based on my experiences, or are based on what God's word says. There was a time when I was in the UK with my wife, and my parents were also in the UK. My dad one time came to me, he phoned me and asked me if we could be guarantors for them, because the banks were refusing to give them a mortgage because of their age. And my parents asked me to be, my dad specifically is the one who phoned me. My dad used to ask me for a lot of financial assistance, ask me for money, and sometimes it would be in a very demanding, very aggressive manner of speaking. And he asked me if we could be their guarantors, and I said no, and I could tell he wasn't happy. He said, why? I said, because we've already got a mortgage, and we can't put ourselves in a position where if you fail to pay your own mortgage, we have to pay for you as well. And his response was, but why would we fail to pay our mortgage? But I mean, it's easy to say those things when you're not in the situation. So basically we said no. And this verse says, don't be a surety for a stranger. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a stranger. It says, he that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it. It means basically you're going to suffer. You may suffer if you put yourself down as a guarantor. There's another verse here as well that talks about the issue of money. Proverbs 22 verse 26. Be not thou one of them that strike hands, or of them that are sureties for debts. Yeah, don't be a guarantor for someone. Don't be a surety for someone. It goes on to say, if thou hast nothing to pay, why should he take away thy bed from under thee? Because when that person that you're being a surety for fails to pay their debts or their mortgage, the person that they're going to come to is you, and it says here they can even take away your bed. Where are you going to sleep? So it's not very wise to be a guarantor or surety for someone. Number 8, Romans 13 verse 8. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. Basically the first part of that verse, owe no man anything. Get yourself in a position where you don't owe anyone anything. Try to be as self-sustaining as you can to reduce costs, and be ready for no buy, no sell. I.e. buy a property with lots of wood, water and land to grow your own food. Also install solar to reduce electricity costs. That's what we've done here. We have a wood burning stove that we used to cook with, because one of the things that consumes a lot of electricity in a household is an electric stove. So we took that out years ago. We took that out. We don't even have an electric stove in the house. We use mostly wood for cooking with our wood stove, and then we also have gas stove in our stoves, and I also have petrol stoves as well that cook or burn fuel in the same way as gas stoves do. So I'll show you some of that maybe in a different video about exactly what we're doing to reduce our costs and stuff. But I said the major thing you need to get out of the way is your mortgage, if you have one. And if you don't have your own house and you're renting, get yourself out of that position. Maybe buy a piece of land and build, even though I don't recommend building because it comes with a low stress. But yeah. Number 10, which is the last one, don't hire agents to do things that you can do for yourself. For instance, when we came back to Zimbabwe as returning residents, we actually filled out paperwork by ourselves. I'm talking about me and my wife. And even when it came to applying for a subdivision permit, I did most of the running around. I didn't hire anyone. So because that's an outlet for money to go out as well. So try and do everything yourselves. I'm sure all of us can read and write, so surely you can do that. You just need a bit of confidence. So just for the sake of not making the video too long, I'll stop it here, but I will do some other videos where I'll show you some of the things that we're doing to reduce our living costs, and also trying to be as self-sustaining as we can. So even if you got just one thing from this video, I'm glad that I said something that can help you. And don't be complacent, because now it looks like the world has gone back to how it was before this pandemic, but anything can happen anytime, because these guys who are working for the devil are not going to give up their goal of taking over the whole world. So get yourselves ready, keep pressing on. Don't relax and think that everything is fine now. Don't get yourself into even more debt. Try and pay off whatever you owe. So I hope this was a blessing to you, and I'll see you in the next video.